Welcome, everybody. I'm Danielle Rapu, Outreach Librarian for Pasadena City College, and I am excited to be your moderator today for the Career and Social Justice Speaker Panel for Business and Industry Careers. I have some panelists with us today that are eager to share their personal experiences and career paths with you. I'm going to ask them to please introduce themselves. If we can start off with Jeff.
Hello, I'm glad to be here. So my name is Jeff Badger. I teach in the business division of Pasadena City College. I usually teach most business classes, but special emphasis on business statistics and business math. I'm glad to be here.
Jeffrey?
Yeah, my name is also Jeff Winter, I am now a full-time faculty member teaching in the paralegal department and business law, and that started last year. Prior to that, I was a full-time practicing attorney and a part-time teacher at PCC for many years.
And Shirley. Oh, I'm sorry, Shirley, you're muted.
Okay. Hi. Nice to meet you all, and my name is Shirley and Tang, and my Chinese name is Xiaoli Tang. You can see this on the screen. There's my Chinese name, Xiaoli Tang. Yeah, I'm working as a staff accountant in a nonprofit agency, and yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're so happy to have all of you here. So I am going to be moderating the panel, which means I will be asking our panelists some questions. And being that we have kind of a smaller panel, we'll have time for each panelist to give an answer to each question. So without further ado, I'd like to start off with the first question. So let's start with Jeff. What is your career or career path, and what made you decide on your career?
Do we have enough time? My process took a lot of twists and turns. I had a bachelor's degree in accounting, and in my early 20s, I came to the US and I was working for Walgreens, and I became a store manager for Walgreens. And I just realized that I couldn't have a lot of opportunities as a manager. Think about it, right? It's a company that has about 100 store managers and only one district manager. So going up, I had to be better than 200 people to become a district manager. And so I just realized that I reached the end of that career. And so I had to make a change. And there were other factors too. I wanted to be in a profession where I could make a difference. And for me, making a difference would be going into teaching. And so I had to go back, get a master's degree and in business, and then get a doctorate degree. And then from there, I was able to get a job at PCC, and then was able to leave that job to work for PCC. But prior to that, I also taught at other schools as an adjunct, a part-time teacher at several other private schools before I got to PCC. So that was kind of the detour in my career path. But my background has always been in business. And so it was an easy move from a private sector to the public sector.
Jeffrey?
I think mine was kind of like Jeff's, where it kind of went all sorts of ways. I graduated with a business degree also from USC way back when, but I really didn't know what I wanted to do and what job I wanted to get into. So I figured, why not go to law school? They'll enhance my business education. Why not? So I went to law school, and after a while, I became a litigator and started litigating lots of cases, and I've done over 5,000 cases and lots of jury trials. Didn't start out that way. I was supposed to just be in the office, but things happen. But during that whole time, I also taught. I taught at PCC for years, part-time, because I love teaching. I taught in accounting, I taught law. And so that's how it just happened. I constantly called the department chair way back when and begged him for a job, and he gave me a job off campus, and I've been doing it ever since. So that's my big passion, is teaching. So that's what happened.
And how about you, Shirley? What was your career path and how did you decide on your career?
My story is a little different, and I just moved in America in 2017, and before that I got a bachelor's degree in China, and it's like a business, a business, and then I got a master's degree in Japan, and as a kind of education degree in Japan. Then after I moved to here, and I decided to take some class in PCC and about for a certificate, like a accounting certificate. Then it took me 2 years to finish. Took me 2 years to finish all the required classes for the certificate. Then now I applied to a job, accounting a job in a nonprofit organization. The name is Didi Hirsch. Yeah, and yes, and I used to be a teacher in China, for 20, I think more than 10 years, 15 years. And because I have in China, then come here, I think, I just think maybe is, how to say, I really like working, with numbers. Yeah, so and because I had a business bachelor degree, and so I choose the accounting as my career now. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So it sounds like everyone's path wasn't exactly A to B linear, right? It takes, like Jeff said, some twists and turns along the way. So let's get to our next question. Who or what helped you along the way? Maybe mentors or inspiration. Let's start with Shirley this time.
What, sorry?
The question sorry, no, we're going out of order this time. I just thought I would switch it up. So who or what helped you along the way? So maybe inspiration or mentors that you had that helped you along the way.
Yes, and first I really want to, say thank you to the Miss Mr. Corin, and she is an instructor professor in the CEC. The CEC of I think the CEC, what's the full name? Is a
Community Education Center.
Yeah, Community Education Center. I did a short time, I think a couple months. I worked as a tutor of her classes. Worked as a tutor for her classes, and for a couple months. But I heard, and one of her classes name is I think it is work readiness. Yeah, the work readiness. I think that class is so helpful and informative. I worked at the same time that I was working as a tutor. I also learn a lot in class. That's very helpful for me. It's very helpful and to to find a job here. That's the first that I want to see. Thank you. That is so helpful. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Shirley. How about Jeffrey?
So actually, to begin with, it was my parents really supported me, pushed me towards my career. In fact, at one point I was at Cal Poly Pomona doing animal science and doing introduction to swine production, which had nothing to do with business, and introduction to beef production. And it was my mother who was like, no, you need to get a business degree. You need to go to USC. So I did. So that was a big thing. And then throughout my college career and law school career, it was just friends that I met that we all kind of studied together. And to this day, I still see those friends from college and from law school. We became very close. And so that was very helpful along the way too, to get through school. Just meeting other people and really working together.
Thank you. Jeff, how about you? Who or what helped you along the way? Any inspiration or mentors?
For mine is similar to the rest, but so growing up in Africa, you had a few choices. You could either be a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer. That's it, and luckily an accountant maybe. And so you had basically 4 key areas. Everyone had to be one of those. For me, I think when I look back, I think it starts right from when I was in elementary school. I had a very good teacher in math, and he was so good that he made me like it. And so if you ask most students, they hate fraction. They like decimal, right? But he made fraction so easy. So up to this moment, when I'm teaching, I always want to end my answers in fraction. And that was right from elementary school. When I got to high school, I had a teacher in econ, and he was really good with economics. And so even though my goal was to be a doctor, right, he made me to rethink that maybe economics is something that is good to go into. And that kind of spurred me into my bachelor's degree, which I did in accounting at that point, because that was what I ended up doing. And it's funny when I think about it, the reason why I did accounting was just because I was told, and I think that's where the teacher's role is very important in building careers for students. I was told that accountants have money, and so I said, okay, what do we do accounting, right? And that is not all true, that. And but I think once when I came in the U.S. I found that my passion was to teach. I also had some really good professors in my master's program who told me, hey, if this is what you want to do, this is how you have to go about doing that. And that was how I was able to go on and do a master's degree and go on and do a doctorate degree and end up getting a job at PCC. And even at PCC, I don't want to put him on the spot, but Jeffrey Winter has been a very, very good support system for me, helped me through the process. And so for me, I think that for most people, it tends to be, your teacher is a very huge influence. I think family plays a huge role, and I think friends can also be very helpful in getting you to the right direction, and where our careers end up being as they are right now.
I just like to say I concur the same thing with Jeff, that he has helped me along too, which again, throughout your career, this is what happens, and it's very helpful to help you succeed.
Yeah, it definitely seems like building a network is super important, and not just when you're getting started, but every step of the way. So our third question is, what are the requirements for this profession, either college or a credential? So also, what does a day-to-day, day on the job look like for you? Let's go ahead and start with Jeff.
So I'm guessing this is for what I do right now, right? So right now I teach, like I said, I teach business math and business stat, and so the requirements to be a professor for a community college, usually the minimum requirement is a master's degree, and so you're required to have a master's degree in that field that you want to study. So um, for most business classes, not including some of those ones like law and accounting, but for my field, you need to have at least an MBA. That's a key factor. And to be able to teach stat, you need to have some stat um, um, training. So maybe you took some stat classes. So that's a big factor for you to be able to teach statistics, having that background. Um, Even if you have a master's degree in math, that could be helpful too. But because the classes are tied to business, we require that you have at least an MBA in that field. Um, that's one. What does my day to day look like? Well, I think post COVID, everyone's life has been turned around. But usually, before we teach a class, we have to prepare for the class. So there's a lot of preparation that goes into teaching that class. So making sure that you have the right materials, making sure that you post the videos are set up so that they cover those classes, making sure that you have all that you are able to explain it, you have it all set so that students can understand it from basic level to a more advanced level. And that's preparation stage. And then once the time comes, you are able to teach that class, making sure that students are able to get that connection with the teacher. After that is done, then you do post analysis. You go and make sure that the students got the concept, they understood that concept, and then you now basically you repeat, right? Then you set the next class up, and then that goes on and on and on. So it's a pretty straightforward. I think for us, the extra thing we do is we have to also grade the students. We have to also set up office hours where we get to help students if they have any questions, concerns, or issues. So that's kind of how my day goes.
And Jeffrey?
Well, since Jeff got the professor part, I'll do the attorney part. So what do you need? The requirements, one, generally, you need a 4-year degree and then an undergrad, and then you need to go to law school for 3 years. Now, there's other ways to do it. There's always the Kardashian way, which she keeps talking about, which is real. You can do 3,000 hours of study with either a judge or an attorney. That's unlike what the TV show portrays. That's a really hard way to go. I know one person that's actually done it and completed it and passed the bar, but it's very difficult because you have to learn everything on your own. You have to learn to take the bar. You're really on your own. So it's tough, and you have to take the baby bar. But generally, most people go undergrad for 4 years and then to law school for 3 years. Day to day, that's one thing about being a lawyer. There are so many different types of things you can do. There's in-house counsel for a corporation. That day-to-day operation is totally different than day-to-day like what I used to do, which was being a full-time litigator. My day usually was going to court all day and then coming home at about 5 or 6 o'clock and then downloading my files because I didn't have time to go to the office, and then preparing for my cases for the next day, or if I'm in a jury trial, after I'm in court all day, coming home and preparing for the next day and changing things that the judge wants. So that's what it is. And then in the meantime, you're also working on other cases where you're trying to settle a case or talk to the client. So it's busy. There's other, besides doing civil litigation, there's criminal litigation where you can either work for the state or the city and prosecute, or you can be on the criminal defense. And that's a lot of litigation being in court also. But there's also transactional work where most lawyers never go to court. Most lawyers are in an office all day, writing up contracts, negotiating, things like that. So that's the day-to-day.
Thank you. And how about you, Shirley? What are the requirements for your profession and like college or credential, and what does a day-to-day look like for you?
Okay, that's just based on my personal experience. I think first you need a degree, at least I think a degree in business or in accounting, or and my coworkers, they have someone has a degree, the MBA degree, and to work as a accountant, And for my daily life, I just work and what I do every day, just work with the numbers. Always worked with numbers, make a payment and check the, and book the expenses, cost, and run and prepare the accounting and financial reports, and to prepare for audit and the documents for audit, yeah, it's just like this. And I think it's not so. For me, I was very, like working with the number, but I'm not sure it's for everyone, for all people. Maybe someone think it's a little boring, but I'm enjoying. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Shirley. So our next question is, what does social justice mean to you? How does your career or career path connect to social justice? This is a loaded question.
I know.
And in what ways are you making, or do you hope to make a difference? Or if you want to share any examples of steps that you've taken to promote social justice in your role on campus or outside of campus. And so let's give it a moment to think about that. I know that was kind of a loaded question, but whenever you're ready, let's start with Jeffrey.
Okay. Well, social justice, I think in being in the law, there's a lot of ways to really promote it. There's nonprofits like Legal Aid. I worked at Legal Aid at one point. I worked at volunteered at a privately funded nonprofit, Bet Sedek, where we helped people of all races, colors, genders, who needed help in particular areas. But as a particular example, I can remember not too long ago, a year or two ago, a woman from my wife's church contacted us because they knew my wife and I were both involved in law and real estate. And she had a problem where her house was foreclosed on, even though she made all the payments. She worked very hard at a part-time job, had a couple kids, adopted a kid that was homeless, and the house was foreclosed on and couldn't understand why. And then she was being evicted. And so my wife and I both got involved, and I started calling people. Now, what I can tell you is that I'm normally on the landlord's side, but I call people who I go up against, and that's really important in any field, to be professional. And so I called people who I had good relationships with, and I got public counsel to represent her. And in fact, when it was during the eviction trial, my wife went down there to make sure everything went fine, which it did. And the bottom line, after a lot of stress, her kids were really freaking out because they felt they were going to be homeless. and they weren't. She ended up winning both lawsuits, and I think the judgment was for $150,000, something like that. Yeah. Yeah. So she got a little bit of money in her pocket for going through the stress, which still, you know, it's not worth it, tell you the truth. But that to me was social justice, helping somebody who really she didn't have the money, she didn't have the knowledge, but she needed help. And so we were lucky enough to be involved, and we were able to help, and thank goodness it was a good result. So that's, to me, that's social justice.
Wow, what a win.
Yeah, it was a good one.
How about you, Jeff? What does social justice mean to you? How is your career path connected to social justice? Or if you have any examples of how you've implemented social justice in your career?
I view social justice from a point of view of, everyone deserves equal opportunities. And so equal opportunities could be in terms of, social amenities, social rights, economic opportunities, political opportunities. So, and that's what I see social justice is, giving people opportunities regardless of their race, their gender, or where they're from. And that has been something that I think I've, like anyone else, I've encountered some of those things in my own life. And so I've always seen that as an opportunity to correct or right those wrongs if I've been placed in those scenarios. I remember during my master's program, I remember going through over 2 years of a master's program, and I never had a Black teacher. In many of my classes, I was the only Black guy or Black person, basically. And sometimes we don't see the effect of this, but it can have a big effect when you don't see someone that looks like you or talks like you, and you can feel isolated, you can feel vulnerable, you can feel it can make you to want to pull out of that system, and so finding people like that sometimes can be a real boost, because if I see someone in that scenario, I will say, okay, if he or she can do it, then there's a high chance that I can do it. But if I don't see anyone that looks like me, then it feels like I'm just alone in that scenario. And so, and I remember looking at the questions and I say, that's true. I remember I never saw anyone like that in my whole master's program. And I think in my doctorate program, we had about 2 or 3. So that was a little bit better, but that was students. I still had we had no Black teacher there. And so I think that sometimes that's some of the simple examples where social justice comes into play. And so in my career, I becoming a teacher and at PCC, and I've always wanted to be in places where I could make a difference, no matter how small it is. And so serving on committees, right from my first year as a full-time faculty, I basically was on a hiring committee, something that is not common. And I did that because I want to be in a place where I could have a say. The thinking always is that if you want to make a difference, then you can't say that from outside. You can make a difference when you are at the table. And even if it's one voice out of many, you might be banging so hard that somebody will listen. And so at PCC, I've always worked towards being in areas where I can make a difference, either if I'm serving on at any of the committees on campus or in my department or my faculty. And as a teacher, I also allow that to be part of how I teach. I recognize that as a Black person in the class, that would encourage some students to say, okay, if this guy can do that with his funny accent, then I can also do that too. And so I know that I represent not only as a Black person, I also represent myself as a first generation immigrant. And so being able to achieve this in my own little way is an advantage to others. And when I'm teaching too, I'm always working to apply concepts that covers everyone and also find tools. And so some of the simple tools is, finding resources that is available for everyone, things that they don't have to pay for if possible. And I've worked tirelessly with other colleagues, including Jeffrey, so that we can use, OER, some of these free tools, so that way students don't have to pay extra money for those resources. So these are some of the ways that um, I have been involved in that. One of the other ways that I want to talk about before we go is mentorship. Being able to be available to help students, to give them directions, to give them pathways so that they can be able to have careers is something that I do all the time, and I love to do that. Talking with students and helping them see a way forward. Because when you tell students, hey, you know what, I know where you're coming from, but this is how you can achieve those goals, has been one of the things I always work towards.
Thank you. And Shirley, what does social justice mean to you? How does your career path connect to social justice? And what examples do you have that you want to share with us about how you promote social justice in your career?
Yes, in fact, I don't know, seldom think about these questions, the kind of questions. And just like I mentioned, I have been in US only 3 years. And here I want to share my, my company's website, and I work in DD Hirsch Mental Health Services, and we have the two main events we run. My company runs two main events every year. And one is Alive and Running, another one is ETS, and it's ERAS. Let me show my screen. There.
Yeah, feel free to share your screen. That's so impressive, having your own business and being in the US for just 3 years. So yeah, we'll have Shirley share her website of her business.
Yeah, I can show you, and I think here. Sorry, let me share that screen. Yeah, my workplace has a diversity of the employees, and we have the two made the events now. Well, one is here. Where's my, oh, sorry. There are many to save life. You can see here is one of the event, Alive Running, named Alive Running. Going, we have the what social that's for, sorry, that's for, yes, that's for raise money to, sorry, why it's so provide suicide. We have the provide suicide. I want to introduce this event that's for suicide prevention. Yeah, and I just feel like like me, you can I see, yes, from my speaking and you can felt, I think you can felt my English not so fluent, and even people like me can have the, have a opportunity to find a job in here, like this kind, the company, the organization. I think maybe, yeah, I think that's kind of a, how to say, as can I say it's like a kind of the justice. I think we have the and you can have there are opportunity to pick people, and no matter what the gender and the skin the color and the language and and the background where to come from, and things the equal opportunity to all people, that's kind of the justice. That's in my opinion. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't think about that question, so I didn't think that. Yeah. And I want to know, I really, and my work with my company is as I think they provide opportunity to all the people. The second, yeah. That's it. I stop share. Okay.
There we go. Now I'm unmuted. So we're going to move on to the next question. And thank you, Shirley. Our next question is, what advice would you give someone who's interested in your profession or career path, and how might they get started? Oh, I'm sorry. Anyone can start, or do you want to go ahead and start, Shirley, on what advice you might give?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. It's my turn. What? Sorry.
Oh, sure. Would you like to start on what advice you might give?
Yeah, I can start.
Okay, Jeff.
Yeah, I can start. So, I consider myself a data a data person. So statistics is one of my key areas. I teach business statistics, and I'm into a lot of data analytics. And so what I would say is anyone who wants to go into that field of being a statistician or into statistics, what I would try to encourage them is that in their bachelor's program, they need to try to take a lot of statistics classes and math classes. I know that there's a general fear for math, but one of the things I found out is that once you start taking them, you get used to it, and it becomes easier as it goes. And so my advice for them would be to make sure that in the undergraduate degree they take a lot of statistics classes. And then I always encourage them, if you want to be a teacher like I am, you want to be able to get at least a master's degree. And so I think the school you go to plays a huge role. There's a lot of schools out there, but there's some schools that are known to be very good schools. So either the UC schools or the CSU schools are really good schools. There's also a lot of good private schools. So my advice would be they go to those schools and take an MBA class. And I usually tell students, don't, and I've always thought that doing an MBA with emphasis on something is always better than a general MBA. So a general MBA, I feel, is more you're trying to protect yourself in case anything goes wrong. And so, but if you place an emphasis on MBA, if you do an MBA on, let's say, on finance or MBA with specialization in HR or something, then that makes you some kind of an expert in that field. And so that would give you a better stand if you're trying to look for a job in that area. So for a teacher who wants to teach at PCC, get an MBA with FSC on something like finance, puts you in the right way, because you can teach business, you can also teach finance classes, you can also teach statistics classes. So it gives you more room to be more flexible and to be in more demand. Because remember, there's a lot of people going to school, right? And you want to stand out, you want to be unique. And so that makes you in a better position in the job market compared to someone else.
Thank you, Jeff. Before we move on to the next answer, I do want to let everybody know, all the participants, that in the chat you will find a link with a brief survey where you can give some feedback about this panel, and you will be entered into the opportunity drawing to win some prizes. So anyone who is participating, please click that link and give us some feedback, and we're going to get back to our panelists to wrap up and finish answering this question.
Danielle, you're on mute, but I think it's my turn. So yeah, mine's kind of simple. I mean, if you want to go into the field of law, first thing I would do is take a business law class and just kind of check it out and see what you think. I mean, because again, as I was sitting here listening to Jeff and Shirley, I'm thinking in law, it's just so varied. You can be a sports agent, but you would want a law degree if you do that. You can be a prosecutor, but I just think business law is like a good survey of everything. And so that just gives you an idea of what it is and you know, what you're in for. And so that's what I would do.
Shirley, is there any advice that you would like to impart on our participants?
Yes. For me, at this thing, my suggestion is that just do a try, and if you want to, for me, like me, if I can, just want, yeah, yes, that's my first suggestion is just do a try if you want to do, and how is depend on the how desired you want to, you want a job, you want to find a job, and do your best to try every chance, every opportunity people provide to you. Before I got this job, I do a volunteer, and in then PC and this thing at PCC to help people to fill the tax return. That's it, and yeah, and yeah, that's I think if you have you very strong desire to find a job first, and then you will do your best to find, do a try. No, you don't need to shy, and you don't, and yes, and to try your best to find the chance for yourself. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Shirley. That's wonderful advice. I completely agree. If you're given opportunities, take them and run with them and meet as many people as possible. I think that's definitely been the theme of today's panel session together, is that if you have the opportunities, ask questions, advocate for yourself. I want to thank each and every one of our panelists today. This has been wonderful. We have reached time, so I do want to be respectful of our panelists and our participants' time, so we're going to go ahead and close out the panel. But again, thank you so much for being with us here today at our Career Community Social Justice Conference. And again, this recording will be available in the future if you want to look back on it. So thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. And again, for anyone who may have missed it, we do have the link in the chat for the survey. So if you could please go ahead and take a few moments to fill that out and make sure that you go all the way to the end, so that way you're entered into the opportunity drawing to win some prizes.